Thank you all for tuning into the Innovator's Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Seth Narayanan, founder and CEO of Telian Systems. My guest today is Gaurav Roy. He goes by the name Roy. He's a product innovator with a knack for showing up exactly when an industry is about to change. He's helped build operating systems and UX ecosystems for Samsung, driven cloud and remote work solutions at HP, spent time in large tech environments like Google, Vodafone, and now he's shaping the future of airline retail at Accelya. We're going to talk about how Roy spots these transformation waves, what Amazon like airline retailing really means, how we build zero to one products in one of the most conservative and highly regulated industries in the world. We'll also get into what happens when airlines stop thinking like ticketing systems and start thinking about open platforms. Roy, welcome to the Innovators Playbook podcast.
Thank you, Seth. Love to be here.
Excellent. So why don't we start off by giving the listeners a little bit of your background and have you kind of got into technology and some of the key roles you've held into your current role as a CTO of Accelya.
Thank you, Seth. I think I've been pretty lucky to be at the right time, at the right place when massive transformations have happened. If you look at my career trajectory out there, you'll see a pattern that shaped how I think about technology and transformation. Right from early on, I went into a lot of startups and I was drawn to big, meaningful problems, not like incremental improvements, but arena where technology could literally reshape how things work out there. I appreciated those opportunities and I've always tried to leverage those. This is what I would suggest to your audience to be next to a big opportunity. Whenever a massive transformation is happening, whether in AI or airlines or anything else, if you position yourself closer to those landscapes, the opportunities and ideas just come naturally in that particular sense. This kind of positioning has helped me really take on the most disruptive domains in the last 2 decades. From mobile operating systems, you could see that with Google, televisions, and other things with the Tizen operating system, today running Samsung TVs, or even redefining work. When COVID happened, I was luckily at HP where we could basically go and do that. Each of those moments, right, there are some 2, 3 things that really helped me and my team transform those particular sections. At a high level, I would say these were the 3 things. One is the love of problems. You really need to love the landscape, the problem at hand to really go and innovate products, innovate technologies that can revolutionize. Secondly, you need to move with clarity, velocity, and quality as anchors. The clarity of purpose and outcome that comes from the first thing, which is your love. Really go and accelerate those things, really innovate and quality. And finally, innovation drives a business imperative. If there is no commercials behind it, typically things just don't survive. I think you know this very well, Seth. This is what you must be applying. But this is what's driven me from area to area. I really have high conviction that airlines are due for transformation and the way we travel needs to change massively. That's what gravitated me into this particular domain of airline retailing at the moment.
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing about your background is you worked in some of the largest companies and they're very highly successful, but different areas of business. What is it that, A, you're not afraid to jump between industries, and B, you're finding the problem that you're attracted to, that you would like to solve as a driver? Is that something that you find satisfying? Do you not feel the risk? Talk a little bit about how you manage the risk versus the reward there.
So yes, I would say versus a lot of people, I do not feel threatened, especially with change. I felt you learn a lot from a bunch of other people too. My first tech lead, he was a real guru in compilers. This was like the early 2000s, right? Late
Yeah.
90s, late 2000s. He had done compilers for 15 years. He said, hey, Roy, you need to continuously innovate. You're starting with me, but in this company, there are so many other things. We were creating our own ASIC chipset,
Hmm.
Travis Networks. Today, it exists at Qualys. It's one of the
Yeah.
leaders in security out there. So we started with writing the simulator for that and more on the compiler side, and then moved into software. So that instilling of ethos has stayed in me throughout the whole journey. Once you start go from one to the other and you basically get the fun of learning a new domain. It's like practically I've lived 5 lives a career, right? You saw like security, mobile, workforce
Yeah.
experience, and airlines. It's lucky that we are in an industry that we have got such shiftable talents and everybody should go and leverage that.
No, absolutely. I see that in you, in that you're not afraid to face a problem. You see that as an opportunity to learn and solve it, which is fantastic. So that brings me to your current role at Excel, which is solving a very unique, I wouldn't say it's a problem. Like Steve Jobs would say, until you solve it, people didn't even know there was a problem, right? So it's not like people are necessarily clamoring for something like this, but I would love to hear you explain your current product that you guys are building at Excel.
I'll take it more at the industry level. See, I'm part of the industry, which is the airline software industry. It's something that you and I can relate with, and each of your audiences can too, because I assume each of them have one of the lucky elite few who can take a plane out
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
all of you have booked a flight, right? And you think you're done. Then you get emails, the apps, the fine print, the seats here, the bags there, the meal somewhere. Boom. At some moment, something goes wrong. Maybe weather disruption or missed connection, and suddenly you're on your own, right? You're navigating systems that were not designed to talk to each other today. Modern airline retailing is going to transform all of this. It's going to end this anxiety out there. So
Yeah.
in a modern airline retailing world, you don't just buy a ticket. You're buying a promise, a
Mm.
clear, personalized offer that knows what you value, what your journey means to you in terms of your persona, your seat, your bags, your meal, your Wi-Fi, your experiences, all of that comes in there. This comes in like an Amazon order. You
Mm.
get all of these 5, 6 different things that come together. They come on time. They may be rerouted in 50 different ways, but it comes to you. We want to have that sort of a solid experience in a very simplistic form for every person on earth who's flying. And when things go wrong, which they eventually inevitably do, the
Yeah.
experience doesn't collapse. So that shift from reactive to proactive will be AI powered, but in essence, it helps us in areas which are deeply human. So that's one aspect of it. There are multiple other facets to it, which also unlocks, which I think as we talk more, we'll discuss more and more out there. There's one more thing which really gravitated me and matters the most to me on this particular thing. So today, 1 in 6 people, or even less than that, on Earth actually take a plane every year.
That's not the way I look at it. You go to the airport, it seems like it's swarming with people, but
It's
it's an upper world problem, right?
it's the same problem. So in the same, when I moved into the mobile industry in the early 2000s, 11% was the penetration of mobile phones at that point of time. Creating these kinds of advanced platforms transformed everything. Not only changed the experience, but it made
Mm.
technology more accessible to everybody. Today, the penetration is 97%. And if so many people on Earth are not getting access to the beauty of Earth out there, that's the business that we are in, bringing confidence, trust, and dignity in travel for all our passengers.
That's a great mission. But what is complicating probably your mission is some of the technology that's currently in the airline world is probably one of the most legacy technologies out there. We talk about EDI and Sabre and all these protocols that the airline industry platforms were built on. I guess it's probably from the 60s or 70s or maybe even 80s. So, how do you address that as part of how you're innovating? And is that stopping your progress in some way, or is there a way to overcome that?
Yes, so you're absolutely right. First, I'd like to acknowledge what you're saying. The current airport formats, which is called electronic data interchange, is formalized by United Nations and got invented after World War II. To move a lot of goods into Berlin, they invented electronic data interchange. That has basically become formalized as by the United Nations and we just moved that over. The same thing is for fair fighting with the same thing is with ticket reconciliation, settlement, all of this. So
Yeah.
they are paper things on things that have been transformed into the internet. So
Yeah.
what we are doing is just not patching it, right? We
Mm.
are keeping it. So the modern airline retailing has to be open and modular, like a standard, just like how APIs are. You look at Android or iOS ecosystem, everything is an API. This needs to be open and modular. Along with that, if we invent what is currently and not look at the future, this will be a problem because we are at the cusp where AI is about to take over. So we have to design it as per the new AI paradigm. So that's the second part. And the third part is being insanely cloud native, where we are escaping from mainframes. So these are the three things that modern airline retailing has to be. It has to be open and modular, built with an AI focus, and be cloud native. If we are doing all of this, we feel we have high conviction, we can unlock a lot of value, not only with RESTful interfaces, but things like model context protocols, really transform the industry at a insanely rapid pace. You will see massive changes within the next 7 to 8 years, like you've seen in all these other industries.
So you mentioned about building APIs. APIs or having an API layer and owning it is going to be critical for not only your company, but for anybody to interconnect large industries instead of the traditional EDI type of data exchange is outdated. I know for a fact that the healthcare industry is super reliant on EDI. So there's a lot of data that gets transferred, especially on the payment side. So talk a little bit about what are some of the advantages of API based middleware or systems that are more portable, interchangeable.
I think that's one of an important question, but the real question is, I think, even deeper than that. I like to take it in three parts, Seth, if you're okay.
Yep.
I'll talk about relationships. API is basically a contract or a relationship. It's relationship between two parties. The second thing is, yes, what's the advantage of the relationship? And the third thing is that how being at the API layer helps you really see problems and innovate across the whole system. So let me take the first part of the thing. True interoperability starts at the API layer, where systems are actually talking to each other. Being and owning and powering APIs for the largest airlines in the world has helped us at Accelya, or what I see from here, have a lot of relationships. You get to know the problems, you can co-innovate, you can do a lot of things. We have relationships with 75,000 different travel management companies and travel agencies. There are total 430 airlines in the world, out of which 200 and something are the most biggest ones. We really have relationships with everybody, like governing bodies like IATA, Airline Voting Corporation, CETA, all of that. Along with this relationship comes responsibility, where we need to encourage an open ecosystem. If we are not the best in a particular technology, our competition should win. So that's three wins. And that's why we try to encourage such kind of openness out there. The second part, Seth, you are absolutely right. So this position gives us an outsized influence and power across the whole industry, along with some other players too. But the responsibility comes on us is to drive our open ecosystem. If it's an Accelya on private API, we're not up. You're just building for a particular company. So what we do, we actually contributed back to IATA completely. In the past, we've contributed all our interfaces via ATP code to IATA for $1 for distribution capability, which is running all APIs between airlines and these travel agencies. Next, for the modules inside, we are actually open sourcing it completely to IATA. That not only us, but our competitors and us can collaborate to really build the future together. Openness is critical out there. And this is the second part of it. The third part is the future. See, APIs are the contract that allows different systems to interoperate. Can open up innovation, but somebody has to innovate too. Yes, we will not be the innovators on everything, but because we have all of this information from all these places, we do see problems where we are good at and we can attack. And we can also channel information to other partners who are very good in their domains where they can attack. This is the third thing which is helping out a lot. So I would say it's relationships, the open and modularness, and the fact that we are innovating ourselves and pushing others to innovate and transform, that we can have a outside influence on transforming air travel for everyone.
Absolutely. One of the things you mentioned is how airlines are holding users like me captive when we are flying out there. So there is an opportunity for engagement with users like me by these airlines, but that you guys feel like is not being addressed. And that's one of your reasons why you guys have brought out your solution. So talk a little bit about that. What is the opportunity there that can be leveraged?
Captive is a strong word.
Yeah.
I don't think it's by design in the airline industry that we lock you up in the plane or something at max maybe 18 hours.
Yes,
Just
yes.
happens. Teleportation is not invented.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I get your question. So yes, we've got a captive audience. Like you heard this from somewhere else that on the day of travel, even more when you're getting on the plane or the day before travel, people see their phone travel app as many times as they see Facebook for an addicted Facebook user. But the airline industry, we are a regulated industry. We are in the service of people overall. So here we earn your attention. We don't demand it. So we do understand that you've got a large captive audience out there. What we want to do is to support you on certainly the best day, but also on the worst day. When we support you well on your worst day, loyalty comes in. Accessibility doesn't become an edge case. People want wheelchairs, they want families, they want irregular operations. They may be going to a marriage, they may be going to a healthcare situation, and we are in that particular industry. So that kind of situation, we will certainly improve for our travelers. We will give more cross-system awareness. But along with that, once you have that kind of relationship, in this travel application, not only during the worst day, which I was basically mentioning, even in the best day, we can surface things that make your experiences way, way, way better. Hmm. Parts of it will be innovated by Accelya, parts of it will be innovated by the airline, parts of it needs to be innovated by the overall ecosystem. The important thing is to enable that channel that you get the right information in a very proactive way, that you can act on it as per what you want in terms of your journey. Being in the airline industry will never be a Facebook. We'll never be in the mode of throwing in
Yeah.
offers or like YouTube shorts
Yeah.
kind of things to you. In our own dignified way, we want to make your experiences better. And with that loyalty, we would expect the revenue increases for everybody, which should reduce the cost, which makes air travel more affordable also for everybody else. So that's what it is all about.
That totally makes sense. Now, stepping back a little bit, we've talked about the title of our podcast is The Innovator's Playbook, and we like to talk to innovators like yourself. So, what are your thoughts on innovating inside a large company or innovating inside a regulated industry? There are some limits to that. And also, we talked about earlier about innovation being commercially viable. So there are a lot of solutions that are in search of problems that are not necessarily commercially viable. So talk a little bit about your learnings on how innovation happens in large industries, maybe also in small industries, and what are some of the drivers for that, and how do we enable a ecosystem where that can happen?
So this is a great question. There's a lot of business analysis, everything around this. Having experienced equal number of startups and large companies, I don't think it's that different. The key thing is this: whether it's a small company, you're focused on a particular innovative path, right? You have a particular mission and you're working on it. In a large company, you can do the same if you separate your explore and exploit. By explore, I mean that you need to have a unit which is just focused on a frontline product. It is not encumbered with the rest of the operation of the which making, which is churning out the money. You need to separate out the innovation part completely such that they can focus on the problem versus worrying about financial pressure for the next quarter. With that, you have a dedicated mission, you have a captive team. After that, the major thing comes with having a combination of a thinker and doer in your initial core team. You need to have clarity as a thinker what mission you're going towards. What's the business problem? Commercially viable? This is a good architecture. Typically, you hear startups trying to pair a very good business person on a product with a high technologist. Usually, I've been from the technology side, always paired up with somebody else from the business side. Once you have that, it's all about the initial core team has to be thinkers and doers together, where you can take a concept and you can quickly iterate with high velocity to get to production. It needs a small team that keeps on growing with success. But that's the typical mantra that I have typically used. Explore, exploit is one philosophy, and the other one is having a combination of thinkers and doers who have got high clarity on the mission and who are able to move with extreme velocity to showcase quick prototypes and bring things to production. That's what we are doing at Accelya, and that's why we are one of the front in transforming airline retailing at the moment.
Interesting. That's great. I don't know if Google still does that, but apparently 80% of your time you work on your core assignment, and then 20% of the time is your play time. You can explore and do projects that are not your deliverable or what's needed for the next quarter. So is that something like that? The plus conducting internal hackathons is another way companies stimulate innovation. So what are your thoughts on those?
I've seen that happening, but personally, when you're inside that particular product division, you're able to create a lot of innovation strength with these kinds of hackathons. But when you're trying to really transform industries or build new product lines, even in a startup, the expectation from any venture capitalist is that the core founders is their full-time job. It's like not a 20-50% this thing. Even when you're running an innovation practice within a particular section, especially once you've got high conviction, either you've got conviction on a particular product line or you don't. If you have conviction as a company, you should get your most innovative folks and actually focus on that within a small amount of time. That is generally my philosophy versus trying to do too many things.
What are your thoughts on continuous improvement? What you're saying is true. If you're the first Facebook or the first Instagram or WhatsApp, you are breaking into a new industry. But once, let's say, famously in the automobile industry, this idea of continuous improvement. An example is a Honda Accord, which I bought back in mid 80s. They are still making a Honda Accord, but it's 1,000 times better. And every model year, that is an improvement. I don't know if you could call it innovation, but it's basically continuous improvement. Whereas if you're a startup and you're trying to disrupt, you are going to change the world. I think that is also innovation, but that's on a grander scale that requires a different mindset and different way to look at the problems and how you solve it. Right.
Absolutely agree. I feel like, see, even in a startup, right, after you go through your V1, V2, maybe your V3 product, you go into this mode where you need to have continuous improvement. You want it to work in a way that it always works. And that takes a lot of work. And you can remove all the things in the overall system. And that comes in through a lot of this quicker prototyping and other things. That's what you're saying, right? 20% of the time, think of these cool features and go and do that. So once you're in more of that deployed mode, which companies need to transform, every team needs to transform, as they can't always be in an exploration mode. They can be in 1 year, but maybe from year two, they need to be in the cycle that you're talking about.
No, absolutely. So now let's tackle this big topic, which is AI in the future of technology. Can you share how you're leveraging AI in your current roles and where do you see opportunities that or risks coming up down the road? And where do you see overall AI headed?
First things first, I'm a believer in AI. I believe there's a particular criteria I look at for technologies which are not going to take off versus technologies that are going to take off. And that comes to usage. When product market fit is right, users just takes off. That's what's happened with every AI thing out there. Whether usage is just going through the roof. So it happened with mobile phones, it happened with cloud, it happened a lot of other things there, right? So it gives me conviction that AI is real. Not only that I've experienced it, but others are also in the same bandwagon. With that, AI, at least we think of it in two particular forms. One is that we need to move at a pace that keeps us ahead of our competition. And AI is increasing a lot of pace.
You're in web coding and things like that.
Yesterday, main support vice president was showing me off. Even our team is actually using AI technologies. So when a bug comes in to them, they are figuring it out in code and they verified some 20 different elements with my primary developer. In each one of them, customer support was right. Looking at this is crazy. They are just typing it from the prompt they have got with packet traces. This is the power of AI.
You're enabling the non-engineer, the non-software person, a way to challenge the orthodoxy that is there in the technology world. right?
Absolutely. So that's where we are seeing a lot of pace of movement in creating new user experiences, pace of movement in transforming all these legacy formats to the new,
Mm.
and the movement in support, operations, releases, all of that. The second half is equally important. Yes, we are consumers with innovation from all of these cool companies which have taken generative and agentic AI and
Yeah.
packaged it in a good IDE, right?
Yeah. So I was just checking out SDRs that are AI based, right? So they can collect lists, they can make calls, and they can send emails, and they can respond to emails, and everything as a AI bot. As sales executives, job is threatened, or is it? The verdict is still out there, I think.
Absolutely. Now, we owe that to our customers too. We've got disproportionate access to APIs, a lot of data. This data is very private to airlines. Airlines are our primary customers, but we need to same level of generative and agentic solutions on top of the airline data, being their software powerhouse. This could be like just querying stuff, like how to go with a generative AI interface, to even when I was talking about various disruption use cases, to use cases like pricing and a bunch of other things. These need to be driven wherever it gets overwhelming for humans. N cross N connectivity airline thing out there. You imagine like Denver airport is a snowed out airport very often, right? When that happens, you want to really redirect people around. There's a lot of other such use cases where AI can raise the bar on things. And because we are so airline specific, we are innovating in the same space to really transform experiences. And that's where I say modern airline retailing is going to transform how AI is going to interact, making human experiences better.
Very interesting. Do you see that there may be a bubble of some sort, at least in the short term, or promises being made that are too much or too aggressive, or do you think it's the right amount?
There are always going to be some companies who are making aggressive promises and are unable to deliver, or some other competition. Or it's mainly like somebody else innovates faster. You aim to innovate, but you don't end up being the best. You get wiped out. But as I mentioned, I'm a believer that this thing is not a fake trend,
Not a fad.
not a fad exactly. It's not a fake trend. It's not a fad because there is high amount of usage. And with the amount of investment and brain power that's going around here, the last time I experienced it was around mobile apps. That unlocked like Uber. There'll be newer industries that turn up or get revolutionized because of AI around.
That's so true. With that said, would like your thoughts on your advice for the upcoming generation that is getting into technology. I think AI is changing everything. So maybe somebody that was thinking about being a software engineer has to think differently. So, what's your advice for people from a career planning and management and overall life skills, and also in context of some of the risks that AI poses for newcomers?
Yes, sir. I would give the same advice that we discussed in our first question. The only difference is that the pace of change is getting faster. If previously you would get 10 years for a big technological change, it's becoming more like 7 or 5 or that sense. AI is one. You will see something else turn up just after that. You don't know, maybe something between biological and maybe quantum computing coming up next, right? Every 5 to 10 years, you need to really invest in learning new.
Retool yourselves.
That's absolutely right. Whether you want to stay in the same domain or even want to be more aggressive like me, you can change different domains. Irrespective, you need to retool yourself such that you're spending maybe 8, 10 hours of your life on meaningful work, right? You want to be the best worker or have the best impact you can in those 8, 10, 12 hours that you are keeping in your particular working day. And you owe it to yourself more than anybody else. So I would just say upskill yourself every maybe 5 to 7 to 10 to 12 years, depending
Yeah,
upon area that you're in.
that's great advice. And people forget to do that because you're caught up in your day to day. And at the same time, you are responsible for your career. Everybody is kind of a independent agent in some ways. Like professional sports people think about it as you've got to put yourself in a position where people want you and want to hire you. And that's only possible if you keep yourselves being skilled. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Roy, for taking the time to be on our podcast today. You've answered a lot of questions, added a lot of value to our discussions here. So appreciate it. Thank you. And all the best to you and your family.
Thanks, Seth. Love the conversation.